Hey all, and welcome back to Critical Role Recap. Um, it was a busy week. Uh, we got right into episode 3. There's only one more left to the overture. We had a lot going on. Wick was exposed to the truth of what his family was doing. The celestial entity that was being tortured and bled, essentially, to harvest filament, this magical essence that his family is using to found the Candescent Creed, which is the new burgeoning religion. So his grandmother confesses to him and lets him know that they invented the Candescent Creed to control and manipulate the masses. Wick seems horrified, but there's like a beat in that interaction where he seems to understand, at least a little bit, that he needs to tell grandmother what she wants to hear in order to at least step away from the Halavar family for a few moments to process. And he basically tells her that he just needs to process all this information that's just kind of been dumped on him. We meet a sister of his, Zabney, I think is her name, who we hadn't met before. His grandmother, Yanessa, makes it crystal clear that she always hated Wick's mother, Iris. Every implication is that she is a true believer. So his grandmother basically tells him to stop believing and just be the face and understand that it is the source of their power and influence, and that's critical. It also comes out that they are not directly descended in that way. Essentially, Yanessa, his grandmother, says that she used the filament and to do a spell or a ritual in which she asked this celestial entity that they name as Ithion, or Ethion, to make herself have a child. And that child is Goddard, who is Wick's father, the one who's blindfolded. He doesn't have eyes. We find out that he actually has hidden wings that he keeps bound up, but they're there. So, because he was essentially created from the filament, there is a connection to that celestial bloodline. But it's not like she and Ethion had Goddard together in the traditional manner. So the Halavars gain favor and strength from a deal they've worked out with this demonic prince or entity, who is known as the Shadow of Suffering. And in exchange, he gets souls. So Wick is shaken by all this. Tyranny tries to emphasize how dangerous his family is, and how if he's going to play inside of all this political intrigue, he's going to have to be careful. The problem is that Wick is incredibly naive and clueless and just doesn't quite get it yet. We also find out that there's an arranged marriage to the Dantonios, I believe that's the name. They have a vineyard that the Hollowars need in order to dilute the filament so that they can spread it to more people and manipulate and control more people through this invented faith. All of this is really hard for Wick to process. He doesn't want to get married, and apparently there was a love he had once, but his family, said that wasn't possible. Wick has been keeping himself chaste through all this time, which his grandmother is shocked to discover, and basically tells him he can do whatever he wants. Now, at the same time, Wick's uncle has sent Teor, Travis's character, off to something called the Mercanad Couturier, that's it. The Mercanad Couturier. And that's where they send people when they want to get rid of them. To this tailor's shop. And the tailor shop is a front for mercenaries or assassins of the Hollowar family. So Teor shows up only to be set upon by twin brothers who Travis botched the rolls this past Thursday were devastating. Nobody could roll for shit. And so Travis bombed his roll and was hit with a paralyzing spell or hold person, and so he couldn't do anything, and they took him. Meanwhile, Murray had at the Penteveral had a huge and very tense confrontation with Octus's father, Lord Primus Taconis. Did not go well. Murray is exceptionally mouthy, and even though everyone, including the dean, her friend, was trying to, basically say, stop, she ran her mouth until he tried to curse her. That didn't go off very well, but he immediately told the dean to fire Murray. Now, Murray also botched a roll, and so she thinks her friend, the dean, betrayed her, but he didn't. But she doesn't know that. We, the audience, know that Dean Tallbarrow did not betray her. That was two of the cliffhangers that we were left on. The other one was that Thimble had botched her roll the previous week, and so things were ready to pop off with Solomon, who was the guildmaster of the Crows, the Thieves Guild, because she was asking about Casimir. So that attack started. We came back to them with them having just rolled initiative, and again, the rolls went terrible. Thimble got captured in a burlap sack. Wulfric, Cadigan's animal companion, was bound and tied up. Octus tried to set off a spell. It didn't go well. Fortunately, they didn't know that it was Octus because he had obfuscated his appearance so that he didn't look like himself. But they were getting their asses kicked. Cadigan didn't roll well. It was not looking good for our heroes. And then Valus had been following them because she's trying to find the stone, the Night Song stone. And so she came crashing through the window of the tavern, killed the guild master and one of his lackeys, and everyone else decided they didn't want to play and put down their weapons and released Thimble and everybody else. So they agreed that they weren't gonna, fuck with them anymore. They wanted no part of that. And so they got a lot of the information that they wanted. Yes, they confirmed that Kaz is definitely the one who betrayed them, because apparently he was in debt to the Crows deeply and was in deep shit with them. And after the attack on Thimble, he showed up the next morning with a buttload of cash and gold, paid all his debts in full, and he also had a deed. Now, the deed was to a stronghold in Garalay, which they said was to the north in a place called Timony. Cadogan recognized Timony because he had just come from there. So according to the surviving guild members, they made it clear, or the one that they interrogated, made it clear that Teor's brother Sid, who, if you'll remember, was one of two possible people who could have betrayed them, either Sid or Kaz. Now that they know it was Kaz, they find out that Sid showed up after the execution to find out what the fuck went wrong. He shows up, sees the deed, realizes that Kaz is the one who betrayed them, snags the deed, and bolts. So he takes off, and Kaz takes off after him. That's all the information they had. So their plan is to go after Kaz to try to save Sid and to make Kaz pay for betraying Thiazi. So all of that was like a big deal. Then the last little bit that we had to deal with was Hal and Taisha. And that picks up in the theater that Hal was given by the Hollowbar family, much due to Wick's working on his behalf. So they took something that used to be a holy thing for the Orcish god for worship, and instead they've made it's called the Hallowed Round, and instead they've made it this amphitheater. And Taisha and her daughter have a really nice moment with Shandia. Have a nice moment about how they miss each other and how they're important to each other, and I think that kind of made peace from Shandia being really pissed at her mom for opening the box the week before, or the day before for them, last week for us. So Belair shows up at the amphitheater with the paints, the magical paints that Thiazi had delivered to Belair as a last gift to his brother Hal. So Belair shows up and delivers it. He's checked it out. He doesn't know exactly how the paints became magical or in what way they're magical. He just knows that they're not dangerous, so he feels okay delivering them to Hal. Hal receives them and realizes in that mind-linked last moment that he had with his brother, he knew that this was coming. But he kind of had chalked it up to a fever dream of that day. So when Belair shows up with the paints, it kind of creeps Hal out a little bit. They also find that there is a marking on the bottom of the containers from a potter's shop in the city, a local shop in a neighborhood or section called the Fray, we're still learning so much about Brennan's world, about Araman, about the city of Dolmakiar, and so it's slow going as these areas of the city get fleshed out. So I don't know too much about the fray quite yet. The other thing that was interesting was Belair. He did a perception roll, and Belair hears, is how I think Brennan described it, something off, ill at ease, under the city. Now, I don't know if he is somehow hearing or picking up on Ethion's screams of being tortured, or if there is something else also at play underneath the city. So that will be interesting. While all of that's happening, Murray runs into Azane out on patrol, and she kind of tells him about Primus Tacona showing up at the Penteveral, and he tells her about Lord Knight Ironfasten taking over the Arcane Marshals. And so they both know there's a lot to deal with. She also tells him that Dean Tollbarrel betrayed them, but that's not true. We know this. So all of that is happening. And then Teor is bound in a pentagram in the basement of this tailor shop. And Brennan hasn't explained, but his shadow was being cut into pieces. And the implication is that come first light, something really bad would have happened. But instead, Tyranny and Wicander shows up, and Wick kind of throws the Holovar name around and gives the tailors the impression that as Wick's first real assignment, he and Tyranny are to dispose of Teor themselves. And so the two twins, what are their names? Hang on, I wrote it down. There were two of them, obviously twins. Celestral and Rulius. Those are the twins. And they give Teor back. But he's been poisoned with incense. He's been hit with this spell, and so Wick and Tyranny take him out of there and take him directly back to Hal's house, where everyone meets up. And then there's this huge exchange of information. The only people missing are Julian, Valus, Octus, and Belair. After the delivery, Belair just seems absent. I don't recall Taliesin saying he was going back to do anything, but I don't remember him being at Hal's house for the big discussion. So I'm not sure whether I missed it or whether it just kind of got glossed over. Octus had run into Julian earlier. He had originally been with Thimble and all them, and he's in disguise because this is while they were heading towards, or rather from, the dust up with Solomon and his crew. So Julian doesn't recognize him. He kind of picks up on his voice, but Octus doesn't look like Octus. But he's suspicious. He has a really tense interaction with Thimble in which he kind of tries to bully her, and Octus responds, which is kind of what makes Julian suspicious of him. So ultimately, he says he's looking for Octus and that Octus might be in danger. Octus and the group kind of start thinking about that, kicking it around, and decides Octus is going to go talk to Julian. And he drops the disguise and agrees to go with Julian to speak to Lady Aranessa. Valus goes with him to keep him safe. So that's why none of them are there. So in the conversation at Hal's house, it's decided that Thimble, Cadigan, Wick, and Tyranny are all going to leave the city and pursue Kaz and Sid. A lot, like Azane and Hal would like to go with them, but they all have covers. They have reasons to be in the city, as does Murray, Belair, and Taisha. Wick basically asks them for protection because at this point he's now in danger from his family. He has gone against them in order to abscond with Teor. And so they all, Teor, Thimble, Cadigan, Wick, and Tyranny, all decide to leave. And Brennan makes that clear that that group are our soldier table, and that we won't see them next week. In next week's episode, the close of the overture. We won't see them again until we see them again. I don't know if we're starting with them or what. But at this point, they've ended their portion of the overture. And so they head out. Taisha, as soon as she sees that Octus is not with them, she freaks out and is worried about him, transforms into a wolf, and takes off to find Octus, and she follows his scent. Meanwhile, Octus and Valus have arrived with Julian at House Davinos to meet with his father and Lady Aranessa. Lady Aranessa takes Octus to his room, his chambers, which he's been invited to stay in, and they start talking. Julian talks to his father, who asks him if the boy was involved in a plot to rescue Thiazi. Now, Julian knows that he is, or he was, but he lies and tells his father he doesn't know anything about it. I'm not sure why he lied, but he lied. I mean, he has a tense relationship with his father. It could have just been for spite. Julian is also rather calculating. He might not want to give up a possible advantage. Who knows? But for whatever reason, he bumps into some friends of his that have returned from somewhere. 3 friends. And he kind of puts them off and goes outside because he wants to talk to Valus. Valus is outside letting the politics go on the interior of the home, and is kind of touring the grounds, the gardens, when she picks up the approaching wolf that we know is Taisha. Now, something happens because, remember, Taisha has had physical contact with the Night Song Stone, and presumably so has Valus, seeing as how it was stolen from her. Through that shared connection, they are both very much aware of each other, and they each have a sense that they're bonded somehow. And so Valus actually used command and rolled really well, and gets the guards to open the gates to let the wolf, who was on its way, come in. Julian comes out, sees Valus standing there with two kind of catatonic guards just staring with her hand out, waiting for this wolf. But Julian doesn't know what the hell she's doing. And so they have this really interesting moment that Julian doesn't know why, but he feels like he trusts Valus. And Julian is not one who trusts easily. And Valus reciprocates, and says she doesn't know why, but she trusts him as well. She thinks he's an asshole, but she thinks she can trust him. And so she tells him she's waiting for a wolf. And just as they're starting to get into that conversation, I think it was, Ashley. Valus uses divine sense and becomes aware that, number one, Julian's shadow is off and he has been cursed. But that's not what's causing her alarm bells to go off. She looks around, and just on the other side of the veil, which separates life and death, she can see that the entire grounds and gardens are full of dead spirits and specters that are just on the other side of this plane, dimension, whatever you want to call it. And so she's kind of focused on that when actual shadows become solid, and they are all dressed in the garb of House Taconis. And without much thought or fanfare, one of them pulls Julian's father's skull out of his body, and he dies instantly. We don't even get to see how Julian or Valus reacts. We cut immediately upstairs to Lady Arnessa talking to Octus, and they have an interesting conversation in which Octus tells her the truth, because they share a secret about their families that hasn't been discussed in game thus far, which is that both House Taconis, and I can never remember Lady Arnessa's name, like her house name. It's not the Loys, that's Taisha. It's going to come to me 5 seconds after I finish this video. Anyways, the two houses know that when the gods were killed, there was no place for dead souls to go. And so the land of the dead, the in-between area, because as Brennan has explained the lore, the belief is that the soul dies, passes through a land of darkness, and then goes on to wherever, depending on racial or divine influence, they go to wherever they're supposed to go. Now that the gods are dead, that land of darkness is just packed. It's overcrowded. There's no process for going beyond it. So it's backed up. And the danger is growing exponentially with each mortal death that occurs. But those seem to be the only two houses that seem to know that. And just as they're having that discussion, more of the shadows from House Taconis materialize, including Octus's older brother, who gives orders for his men to seize Octus and, quote, open him up. He has the stone in his hand and tells them so we can put the stone back where it belongs. Meaning inside Octus. And that's our cliffhanger. That is where fucking Brennan left us and all of the players. And much like last week, it was Sam going, wait, no, don't go. This was Alex going, wait, no, don't go. And a little bit Matthew, trying to figure out what the hell is going on with his father. So, at this point, I'm wondering, obviously, how Julian's going to react. I want to know how Julian got cursed, if it was just his own bitterness or if something actively happened to him. What all the undead that Valus is seeing, if she's just seeing the outcome of those souls not being able to move on. And what does that mean? What is the imminent danger? Is that veil going to shatter and then what? Undead apocalypse? It could mean anything. If the group who left Dulmakia are going to be our soldier tables, so that leaves Valus, Hal, Taisha, Bolaire, Murray, and Azane. That leaves those 6 still in the city. But we still have 2 tables. So I'm wondering how those 6 are going to be broken up. Schemers and... Damn it, I can't remember what the 3rd table is. Yeah, I can't remember. That's going to piss me off. Anyways, but I don't know how those are going to be broken up, if they're going to include any NPCs or whatnot. I'm interested as to why Bolaire can hear anything, whether he's hearing, like I said, Ithion or something else, something worse. Who knows? I know that Hal, once he, in the big information dump exchange that happened at Hal's house, including Wick confessed all. He told everyone what his family was up to, basically. He did omit the giant celestial being tortured beneath the city. But he did admit that his, that the religion was just so that his family could pull the strings, and that, they were evil. And he was acknowledging that. So far, the only characters that I'm having issues with, obviously Julian, but I can already see the complexities of Julian. He is a dick. I just don't know if he's going to stay that way. I don't know. I mean, Valus came off pretty harsh, when we first met her as well. But she has really shown an interest, almost an affection, towards Octus, and particularly Pin. She seems to have respect and or fascination with Hal and his family and the dynamics of that family. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out. Whereas Murray, the only time I have seen so far Marisha play Murray as someone who cares about anybody is her reaction to her friends in the Pentemporal and the Dean being fired. But like when Wick makes his confession that basically he found out the truth about his family and just had his reality shattered, she literally mocks him. She's over in the corner like, aww. And like, I get people are very cautious of certain families. And there have been comments that she doesn't like Octus for the same reasons. So I'm hoping that that's going to change. But characters who are mean to people, like genuinely mean to people, are hard for me to get past, or overtly selfish. Like, it took me a long time to warm up to Not in campaign 2. Not because I don't like Sam. Sam's awesome. Scanlan was awesome. But Not was a difficult pill to swallow, to find the good in that character and not and be emotionally invested enough that I cared what happened to her. And if it wasn't for Yeza, I don't think I would have gotten over that. So I'm hoping at some point Murray has something like that, because right now she's kind of an asshole. I mean, Bo was an ass too, but Bo was an ass the way that Julian's kind of an ass. Like, with time, you could see the complexities of Bo. And that can go the other way. I mean, I really liked Ford at first, and then Ford had a gray area where I was a little concerned whether I was going to be able to stay on Team Travis for that campaign or not. And I mean, that's part of the magic of great storytelling. You know, we get to know these characters and we like them and we root for them, and sometimes that's consistent throughout, and sometimes characters veer off and go down a dark trail for a while and you're like, no, what are you doing? So I'm hoping, but right now I'm not loving Murray. I mean, she's definitely a persona, not to be overlooked or ignored, and Marisha is killing it that way, but not my particular cup of tea. We'll see what happens. But it's definitely going to be interesting going forward. Brennan is just knocking it out of the park. He knows just what beats, you know, to push, to let breathe. He's really patient about letting the players decide, you know, how long a moment is going to last. He is not afraid of silence, of letting characters just kind of sit in discomfort or contemplation or comfort. And it's really cool. Um, there's been a lot of heavy, but there are some bright spots too. And I know that he has a lot to establish in these first 4 episodes. So it's going to be interesting going forward, to see, hopping through the tables. Like right now, all the players, or during these first 4 episodes, all the players are present, and Brennan just calls people in and out to come to the table as the story dictates. After these first 4 episodes, as I understand it, it is going to be much more, okay, this is the table we're focusing on this week. You know, whether or not people are available, in the back room or off camera, I don't know how that's going to go going forward. They're all very busy, very talented people. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. But let me know what you guys think. Who are your favorite characters so far? What do you think, what are you most looking forward to finding out about or having revealed? What do you think is going to happen next? Let me know down in the comments. In the description below, you'll be able to find the original content and links to Critical Role on Twitch as well. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really makes a difference. Also, I wanted to thank all of the new subscribers. We really appreciate it. Couldn't do it without, that kind of support. So thank you very much. Alright guys, we will see you next time.